Up, guys? Today I bring my thoughts on something that has gained a lot of momentum lately. So I'm going to base this off a story that a friend of mine shared, along with some news in general. And as soon as I start talking, you guys are going to know what it is that I'm referring to. So you guys know how some people lately have been accused of being inappropriate or just misbehaving, disrespecting people, and then the victim says that they were trying to transmit to the person that, say, touching or any affectionate move was not welcome, and the person was just non-verbally communicating, like with faces of discomfort or disgust, um, or just unwelcoming. And then the perpetrator expresses that he or she had no idea that they were being invasive, or let alone disrespecting the person's wishes. To them, all I have to say is that the best way to officially be against something is by actively expressing it. When you communicate something non-verbally, it is implied. There is a difference between something that is implied versus something that is expressed. And some people just don't get it. There are differences in culture, and with differences in culture also comes the differences in interpreting language. Um, for instance, I can think of in the professional world, there was a time, I don't remember the details, but I remember that there was a plane accident that had to do with the fact that some symbols were interpreted differently in a different country, and the interpretation got lost in translation. I remember now. It was a Russian aircraft had some kind of panel, and then the panel used to be the altimeter or something, the the horizontal view. I forget what you call it, but it's the instrument that shows you the ground versus the sky. And then, if I remember, the crew was Russian, and then their tool, the way it was designed, was the background would move, but the symbol of the plane on the center would stay still. So they interpreted the background moving to the side as probably going left. Like if you're turning right, it's actually saying you're going left, and vice versa. Whereas in other countries, it was the plane in the middle would move, but the background would stay solid. For you aviation experts out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that in different countries it was a little different. So eventually, I believe that it all became official that all aircraft had to have the same kind of what is that called? Oh my God, a horizontal, the horizontal thing. Gosh, I feel terrible that I forget my terms, and I should know this. Come on, I've studied this a lot. But anyways, so you see, there is an example of something that wasn't really expressed with words, like the difference wasn't expressed with words, but a crew got confused. So when it comes to interpersonal communication, just because you are saying with your body the obvious, which is, if you back off, um, that is a clear indication that you have discomfort. But if you do not actively pick up yourself from a situation and walk away, then the person isn't convinced that you have a certain type of negative feeling about something that they're doing. So in my friend's case is he had known people for quite some time, and it turns out that they expressed that they were creeped out by my friend's habit of hugging them. And I'm like, wait a second, this has happened for a couple of years. And these people only decide to express it now. And they didn't have the guts to say it to your face. They had to use someone as an intermedium to express that what they did bothered them. Why? You are the person who is having an issue with someone's behavior. It is your responsibility to express that you don't like it, that you don't appreciate being touched. So, why do you wait until a long time passes to all of a sudden express that you are bothered by someone's behavior? So, like, with me, every time I meet someone, I give them a heads up. Unless they haven't been following me on the channel for quite some time, everybody knows that I don't welcome touch. Like, it has to be, I know you well, I'm comfortable with you, and I initiate it. So, you cannot come up to me and start embracing me without me backing off. Like, I make it obvious that I don't want you to touch me. I start backing up, and if you ask me, why are you backing away? I say, this is my comfort zone. So, but even if you didn't get it or you didn't tell me, I would be like, excuse me for backing away, but this is just my comfort zone. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that people who are victims of, unfortunate physical events and traumas, it's their fault. But when it comes to a circumstance in which there was no violence involved, I think the responsibility belongs to you because you cannot get involved in an act and then come back later and say, I was disrespected, or that's not what I wanted to do. No. If you don't want to do something, you actively express it immediately with clear words, which is, no, I don't want to do this. Please let's not do this. But one thing is, you go ahead and do the act, and then you decide that you regret it. That is different. No, no, what can you say? No crossing the line took place. You were rolling with it. So I think you need to take responsibility for your physical well being and how much access you allow for someone to have onto you. So, again, if you are not comfortable with something, if you do not tolerate something, express it. Say it with words. Don't just give ugly faces or retreat. You have to also use words because in everybody's language, in everybody's way of interpreting something, they don't get it the same way that you do. You may have been trained by your culture on how to communicate things non-verbally. There are some things that non-verbally give you cues and clues, but they are not the absolute way of stamping your intentions. Like signatures still need for you to write it out. You cannot just be like, yes, I accept that. The signature is the way of expressing it to a paper. Like a paper does not have a voice, a paper cannot have any sound, it doesn't produce any sound. So by you marking on it, that's the way of you communicating in the piece of paper's language. And what I'm trying to convey by that is paper presents text to you. You respond to the paper via text. A person communicates to you verbally. Your way of acknowledging something or declining something is verbally, unless the person has a hearing impairment. So, again, in the situation of touching and you expressing discomfort or you expressing that you don't dig something, just say it. Because sometimes when I'm out with my boyfriend, I give him some kind of nonverbal cues, and I would hope that he understands me. But he's always like, "What? What does that face mean?" Da 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 da. So he knows that I'm trying to tell him something, but I'm not using words, and he simply cannot figure out exactly what it is that I mean. That's okay. He's not designed to understand nonverbal communication because, like everybody, he had some kind of training from an early age to communicate verbally. He learned to speak, he learned to write and to read, and so did I. So, why am I resorting to something that only I am comfortable with and only I understand and expect for the rest of the world to interpret it in the same way that I do? When it's my own language that I personally came up with. And although most nonverbal things have a meaning already, like you shake your head to say no, you nod to indicate yes, and you cry to express sadness, but sometimes tears can be joyful. But you see, just because you are crying doesn't mean that you are sad. So it's not always obvious that a nonverbal cue is exactly what you think it means. So, to everybody out there who has issues with something that someone is doing, communicate it with words, please. And if after that the person doesn't get it, then I urge you to get away from that situation because it's probably not going to end well for you. And it means that this person's intentions are beyond safe and controllable for you. So I would urge you to just get yourself out of that situation physically. Like, pick up yourself with your legs and walk away. But yeah, you guys, I hope that you made it to the end of this video because I know that I sounded like I was possibly going in another direction, but that would obviously be another separate topic. But it's just that I wanted to put it out there that words cannot be replaced by nonverbal communication entirely. You can use nonverbal communication to reinforce what you're saying, but it is not ultimately the final say. You should still speak that out because there are details that you cannot act out with your body, and those details can be pretty essential. So just have the courage, don't be afraid to tell people what it is that you feel, what it is that you want, and maybe you can playfully use nonverbal communication. Like sometimes I look at my boyfriend and I just give him like a little face of I don't know. I don't know what the face would be, but he knows that I'm about to ask him for something. Like, do you mind doing this for me or that for me? He already knows that we are a couple. We know each other's language, but you cannot expect for the rest of the world to just know that about you and know where you're coming from. So, anyways, you guys, please let me know what you think. Do you see where I'm coming from? Are you confused? Have I made myself clear? Do you need more detail? Um, would you like for me to make a part two to really dig deeper and probably more organized into what I meant? Because I'm saying this on the fly and I didn't really think about this or rehearse this in my mind before getting on here and starting to ramble my life away. But I hope that you see where I'm coming from and that you understand it and, like, at least agree with some of it. I don't need you to agree with everything that I'm saying, but all I want is for you to be able to see why I strongly believe that there is a difference and that one thing cannot be replaced with another when it's not the way that we are wired to communicate with each other as people. So, anyways, just just comment your life away. Tell me what you think. All right, guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.